Oh, hey.
Hey, thanks for meeting me here on such short notice. This place isn't bugged, is it?
Bugged? Wait, Jamie, what's going on?
It's just, you're my only lawyer friend, and I need your professional opinion. Do you see that brand new Hyundai Tucson out there?
Yeah?
That's all I paid for it.
I think I need to get back to you on that.
Do you know what you want?
Yeah, I do now.
Deal's so right, it almost feels wrong. Get the car or SUV you've always wanted, plus America's best warranty at the Hyundai Getaway Sales Event. The guilt is real, but so is the savings.
Listen, I don't want to get in your business, but if that's all she paid for it, I'll have what she's having.
It's a great day for a new Hyundai at the Hyundai Getaway Sales Event going on now. Get 0% APR for 60 months, plus 0 payments for 90 days on all Hyundai Palisade, Santa Fe, and Santa Fe hybrid models. And check out our other great deals at your Hyundai dealer today. Offer ends September 2nd. Call 562-314-4603 for details.
Did you know that parents rank financial literacy as the #1 most difficult life skill to teach? Meet Greenlight, the debit card and money app for families. With Greenlight, you can send money to kids quickly, set up chores, automate allowance, and keep an eye on your kids' spending with real-time notifications. Kids learn to earn, save, and spend wisely, and parents can rest easy knowing their kids are learning about money with guardrails in place. Try Greenlight risk-free today at greenlight.com/Wondery.
The amazing Kate Casey.
Welcome back for another episode of Reality Life with Kate Casey. And I've got a story for you today. In July of 2014, Tallahassee, Florida was in the thick of a hot summer morning when Dan Markel, a 41-year-old law professor at Florida State University, returned home from the gym. He was known as brilliant, ambitious, and deeply devoted to his 2 young sons. But just moments after pulling into his driveway, Dan was ambushed. A gunman walked up to him and shot him. For investigators, the question was immediate. Who would want Dan Markel dead? The answer, as it turned out, lay in the wreckage of his marriage. Dan Markel graduated magna cum laude from Harvard, where he studied politics and philosophy. He pursued graduate work in political theory. He earned his JD from Harvard Law School in 2001 and served on the Law Review. Following law school, he clerked for the judge in the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Ninth Circuit and then joined a Washington, D.C. law firm practicing white-collar criminal defense and civil litigation. In 2005, he joined the faculty of Florida State University College of Law as a tenure-track professor and was tenured in 2010. His academic work focused on retributive justice, examining the roles of punishment, mercy, and family ties in the legal system. And he co-authored the book Privilege or Punish: Criminal Justice and the Challenge of Family Ties. Dan married fellow attorney Wendy Adelson in 2006. She completed her undergraduate studies and then pursued a master's degree in international relations, and then following her graduate studies, obtained her law degree from the University of Miami School of Law. They stood under a wedding canopy surrounded by family and friends. Dan, the son of a tight-knit Jewish family from Canada, wanted the wedding to be kosher, a reflection of the traditions and values that shaped his life. It was one of the first glimpses of the tension between Dan and his new in-laws. Wendy's family, wealthy, outspoken, and rooted in South Florida, often clashed with Dan's deeply intellectual and observant lifestyle. For a time, the couple appeared to be the picture of success. Dan was building a distinguished career as a law professor. Wendy practiced law in areas including immigration, child advocacy, and disability rights. And in addition to her legal work, she taught law students, directed clinics, and contributed to initiatives supporting vulnerable populations. And she also focused on raising their 2 sons. But behind closed doors, the marriage was fractured. By 2012, they were separated, a year later divorced. The most volatile battle was over the children. Dan wanted them raised in Tallahassee, near his work and community. Wendy and her family, particularly her mother Donna, wanted them back in South Florida. Dan Markel opposed this move, leading to a legal dispute over custody. In 2013, the court granted joint custody but required that the children remain in Tallahassee, a decision that reportedly angered Wendy's family. On the morning of July 18, 2014, Dan followed his ordinary routine, a workout at the gym, a phone call on the way home, pulling into the driveway of his Tallahassee home. Within seconds, that ordinary morning became extraordinarily horrific. A Toyota Prius followed him into his neighborhood, and as Dan sat in his car, one of the men inside approached, and that was where he was shot. He died the next day. What seemed like a tragic, isolated act quickly unraveled into a tangled web of deception, betrayal, and calculated violence. Investigators began by looking at Dan's personal life, and the divorce and custody battle with Wendy Adelson quickly stood out. The question became, could family tensions have escalated this far? Harvey and Donna Adelson were the parents of 3 children, Robert, Charlie, and Wendy. Harvey was a successful dentist who operated a lucrative practice, specializing in cosmetic and restorative dentistry. In addition to his dental work, Harvey was involved in managing a dental institute along with his son Charlie. Donna was primarily described as a stay-at-home mom and social matriarch, though she was heavily involved in managing family finances. Some would say she worked practically full-time on social positioning. Her son, Rob, would become a doctor. Charlie would become a dentist, specializing in periodontics. Rob would later recount on the Over My Dead Body podcast how his family nicknamed him Honest Abe after he returned excess change to a cashier, highlighting the family's tendency to mock him for adhering to principles of honesty and integrity, underscoring the controlling and the perfectionistic environment that he grew up in. And he also shared that his parents had threatened to disown him if he married his girlfriend, who was of Indian descent, and then later if he married his second wife, who was of Indian and Jewish heritage. These pressures contributed to his decision to distance himself from the family. The Adelson family dynamics were marked by a struggle over control over finances, legal matters, and personal decisions, especially concerning Wendy and her children. Reports suggest Donna exerted significant influence over Wendy's choices, particularly early in her adult life, while creating tension as Wendy sought independence. The family projected a respectable, socially successful image, but underneath there were deep conflicts, resentments, and mistrust. Investigators quickly noted that the bitter custody battle over Dan and Wendy's 2 children could provide a motive, and when turning their focus to Wendy Adelson's family, all signs began pointing in one direction: her older brother, Charlie. At first, it was small things, phone records showing unusual spikes in communication around the time of Dan's murder. But when they dug deeper, a web of connections started to emerge. Charlie was in constant contact with his then-girlfriend, Catherine Magbanua. Now, Catherine wasn't just linked to Charlie romantically, she also worked at Adelson's family dental practice, a detail that showed just how deeply she was embedded in their orbit. Through Catherine, investigators uncovered the Miami connection. She was the bridge to 2 men, Sigfrido Garcia, the father of her children, and his longtime friend, Luis Rivera. Garcia and Rivera matched the profile of the hitman seen driving around Tallahassee the day after Dan's murder. Financial records filled in the rest. Payments flowed from Charlie to Catherine and from Catherine to Garcia and Rivera, money that lined up almost exactly with the timing of the murder. And it looked less like coincidence and more like a contract killing funded in installments. And then came the testimony. Friends and acquaintances recalled Charlie openly joking about getting rid of Dan. He was bitter over the custody battle that kept his sister tied to Tallahassee, and it gave him the motive investigators had been searching for. Piece by piece, the picture became undeniable. Charlie had put the plan in motion. Catherine, connected to him by romance and by family business, had carried the money and the messages. And then Sigfrido and Luis had carried out the hit. And that case began to unravel in stages. Luis, facing a long prison sentence, flipped and confessed, admitting the murder was a contract killing. Catherine was convicted. Charlie was eventually arrested, tried, and sentenced for orchestrating the plot. And now, nearly a decade after Dan Markel's death, the focus has shifted to the Adelson matriarch herself, Donna. 2 years after the 2014 shooting, the public first saw this case laid out in detail on national TV. It was September 17, 2016. ABC's 2020 aired an episode called In-Laws and Outlaws, introducing viewers to the bitter divorce, the tense family dynamics, and the suspicion that Markel's in-laws may have played a role in his death. Now, many of you may have watched that episode along with me, especially if you're someone who has also remembered every episode of 2020, 48 Hours, and Dateline like myself. Years have passed with speculation swirling, but there was little visible progress until April of 2022, when the biggest break came. Charlie, as mentioned, was arrested at his home in Miami. Prosecutors charged him with orchestrating the murder-for-hire plot, relying heavily on secretly recorded conversations and testimony from those already convicted. More than a year later, November of 2023, a Leon County jury found Charlie guilty of first-degree murder, conspiracy, and solicitation. And that conviction stood out to the Adelson family and sent investigators scrambling to secure another key player. Now, just days after that verdict, on November 13th of 2023, Donna Adelson and her husband Harvey show up at the Miami International Airport, and they have one-way tickets to Vietnam, booked only a week earlier. FBI agents intercepted her at the jetway, moments before boarding. She was booked that night and charged with murder, conspiracy, and solicitation in the plot to kill her son-in-law. Prosecutors allege that Donna was not just a bystander to her son-in-law's plot, but an active participant, pushing for her daughter's freedom and playing a planned role in the murder of Dan. And after years of suspicion, she's now again facing trial, accused of being part of that conspiracy and shattering two families in the process. What has been most stunning to me is that this is not just a case about the brutality of a murder, but the extraordinary web of family conflicts, secrets, and betrayals that surrounded it. So after years of whispers and suspicion, the focus, again, is on the matriarch. And prosecutors say Donna wasn't just a mother trying to protect her daughter. She was an active participant in this murder plan. Wiretaps, coded conversations, and years of mounting evidence now bringing her to trial. The prosecution says Donna orchestrated the murder for hire of her ex-son-in-law, Dan, to enable her daughter and grandchildren to move to Miami. Now, they've emphasized that the family considered offering Markel $1 million to relocate, and when he refused, the plot progressed. Evidence introduced includes incriminating emails, wiretap calls, and testimony that Donna handled business and personal logistics behind the scenes, such as making regular payments to Catherine post-murder, suggesting deeper involvement. The defense has countered by insisting there's no direct evidence tying Donna to the murder. So, I have asked a guest to join me in today's episode. Joe Bodiford is a seasoned criminal defense attorney and law professor, also based in Tallahassee, Florida. He's got extensive experience trying high-profile cases. He's known for his sharp courtroom strategy and ability to explain complex legal issues with clarity, and I knew he would be perfect for this. He has become a sought-after commentator in this Dan Markel murder trial and the Adelson family's legal battles. And I wanted to talk to him about strategy, about theories, the aftermath of the murder, and some of the aspects of the Adelson's family behavior, which struck investigators, journalists, and people close to the case as unusual or unsettling. This is a case, again, that I first watched on 2020, September 17th, 2016. And I know some of you are familiar with it. And many of you who are lovers of court TV have been watching this trial. And I know that you're eager to get insight from somebody who understands the players and understands, most importantly, the court system in Florida. So I was thrilled to interview Joe, and I'm so excited to bring this episode and interview to you today. Here's my interview with Joe.
Audible's romance collection has something to satisfy every side of you. When it comes to what kind of romance you're into, you don't have to choose just one. Fancy a dalliance with a duke, or maybe a steamy billionaire. You could find a book boyfriend in the city and another one tearing it up on the hockey field. And if nothing on this earth satisfies, you can always find love in another realm. Discover modern rom-coms from authors like Lily Chu and Ali Hazelwood, the latest romantasy series from Sarah J. Maas and Rebecca Yarros, plus Regency favorites like Bridgerton and Outlander. And of course, all the really steamy stuff. Your first great love story is free when you sign up for a free 30-day trial at audible.com/Wondery. That's audible.com/Wondery.
Why are there ridges on Reese's peanut butter cups? Probably so they never slip from her hands. Could you imagine? I'd lose it. Luckily, Reese's thought about that. Wonder what else they think about. Probably chocolate and peanut butter.
Joe, I'm so grateful for your time. I know that you have been following this case. So first of all, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you very, very much for having me, Kate. It is a pleasure and an honor to be with you.
My first question, from your perspective, what has made this case so unique in the landscape of criminal law?
Yeah, it's got all the unnormal things of a standard run-of-the-mill homicide, which is a unsuspecting, high-profile, somewhat high-profile law professor. So you've got somebody from an ivory tower that gets murdered. Well, that's kind of straight out of Hollywood. We're not talking about maybe a street-level drug transaction that went bad, or a home invasion where somebody woke up to a prowler and there was an altercation and somebody got shot accidentally or on purpose. This is a law professor. Then you have the whodunit aspect of it. Like, it went unsolved for a very long time. And, Tallahassee is it's the capital of the state of Florida, but it's still a somewhat sleepy southern town. So it's the place is a buzz. Like, oh, is the killer a law student? Was it one of Markel's students? Was it somebody that hated him for his views that he espoused in his writings? Was it one of the other law professors? Was this a neighbor? Was it the family? So there was this big whodunit. Then you get into, once the arrest was made years later, you start to see the web, and you start to see all the intrigue that went into, wait a minute, Miami? Who from Miami? Wait, why? How did they do this? And they're, pulling cameras off of city buses that are literally driving down the street, recording as they go and getting tags. And you get to see the actual movements of the killers as they followed him around the city, and you're watching this. And then you get to the big meat of the coconut, which is, this was about the divorce. This was his ex-in-laws. It was insane. And so as I've said many times about this case over the years, Hollywood could not have scripted and written this any better. And it's like, as you know from what you do and from what you've done for so long, it's all about what the story is. Mm-hmm. And a compelling story will resonate. And this is just one of the most compelling stories all the way around.
I also suspect there is a layer of just relatability that at some cellular level, when people hear this story, they're thinking about, if it's not their own life, but someone they know that had what they perceived as crazy in-laws.
Yeah, well, there's a saying that I've used over the years. The only difference between in-laws and outlaws is that outlaws are wanted, right?
Right.
So
Truly.
Yeah, people, they don't, and it doesn't necessarily even have to be an in-law. It could be a neighbor who's too meddly, or a coworker from work that's too meddly. After a while, you're just like, enough. This person is just annoying the crap out of me. Now, when it is in your family, then it's there more persistent. It's more pervasive, and you've got somebody that you love dearly that loves them dearly. So yeah, it's a very relatable story, but also from the standpoint of Tallahassee itself. Metro Tallahassee is a college town, and it's a state government town, and so you've got a lot of folks that went to that university. They were students there. You've got a ton of people in government and just in the private sector that are attorneys, many of which went to that law school, many of which had Markel as a professor. So yeah, so it's a lot of home hitting on a lot of different fronts.
So let's talk a little bit about this family and the archetypes and sort of the chatter that you've heard in Florida in that area. I remember watching that 2020 episode in September of 2016 and immediately just thinking this was such a complicated story. And there were elements of it, like I said, that's relatable, that you may have a relative that's too involved in your life and in your decisions. What is the chatter in Tallahassee?
I don't know that there's that much thought about why Wendy was so influenced, if in fact that was the case, by her mother, as much as it is, why isn't Wendy herself charged? Because I think the overwhelming sentiment is she's the mastermind behind it. Mom had the money, brother/son had the connections, and the connections had the means. And so I think the chatter is The sad part about it is Harvey, who I don't really think had anything to do with this. Maybe I'm wrong. But as far as how people think about this family, it's just incredulousness. It's like, what type of people are these that they could just, number one, think of this, number two, do it, and then number three, just go on about their lives like it was no big deal.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I mean, but the main chatter is I haven't really ever heard a lot of folks talk about the influence mom may have had as much as that missing link from mom to Wendy. Everybody to a person that's involved in this, and I'm sure you've encountered this in covering the story over all these years. Everybody wants Wendy to be charged.
Yeah. So if you're sitting at a counsel's table, what would you say to the prosecution is this prosecution's strongest card in the trial? And then conversely, what's the smartest strategy that the defense could be using to create doubt?
Yeah, the smartest thing, and I was a prosecutor early in my career, and I spent a lot of years as a criminal defense attorney as well. And I'm very, very well versed in that whole, both sides of that process. From the state's standpoint, we call our prosecutors here state attorneys. Some places they're known as district attorneys, but it's all the same thing. The prosecutor's best card are Donna's own words and actions. And what I'm getting at is the way she's acting on these phone calls, the things that she's saying. And today in the trial, or at this point that we're at in the trial, we heard her talking to Charlie on the wiretaps. We're going to hear calls at some point in the trial of her talking to Charlie once Charlie had been convicted, where she's talking about either killing herself or leaving the country and getting her affairs in order. Why else would she need to do that? And her actions. Flight is evidence of guilt. They catch her at the airport. If those guys had been 30 minutes later, they might have not have ever got her.
Mm-hmm.
Again, can't be scripted any better by Hollywood. So I think that's the state's biggest, and then the money trail. Follow the money. That's we learned that in all kinds of cases that we've seen over the years. You've got to follow the money. Well, this lady's writing the checks by hand to another woman that doesn't work at her practice for a significant amount of money. I mean, come on. So these are kind of the big the big things. And I think the second part of your question would be from a defense side. What is their strong point? If you watched Jackie Fulford's opening in this case, and she's a former judge and has tried cases for a lot of years. It was very succinct. It was very short. There wasn't a whole lot of flash with it. But the one thing you saw over and over again was he, his, they, theirs. So everything is being pointed away from. This is like the Wizard of Oz defense, as we call it. Don't look at that guy behind the mirror or behind the curtain over there, right? Focus on these folks. And I think what ultimately you'll see is her get up and try to spin all these little things you're hearing now. Well, did she act scared when you during the bump? And they asked the agent, did she act scared? Well, yes. Well, of course, when you get accosted on the street, anybody's going to be taken aback and size up the situation and act a little weird. But then when she gets on the phone, well, she's calm by then. Well, the defense is going to say, of course she would be upset, or not upset, but scared or apprehensive when approached by some unknown, scary looking gang member type guy on the street. But by the time she talks to her son, who she knows and she loves, she trusts, she's had time to calm down. Mm-hmm. That doesn't mean she's guilty. So you're going to see spin of these bad facts later on. Now, how you're going to spin a one-way ticket to Vietnam?
I don't know
how you're going to do that. They better come up with something like we already had a contract on a condo that we were buying on a beach in Vietnam for 3 years, and we've been planning this move forever, in which they are not going to have. But what you're going to see is a lot of spin. And we all know what spin is. Spin is, I think the new term for it is gaslighting. Mm-hmm. So I think you might see some litigation advocacy gaslighting coming up here pretty soon.
So the conspiracy charge is central. Prosecutors argue that she was part of this long-running family plot to have him killed so that her daughter could relocate freely with her children.
Right.
Even without her directly hiring the hitmen, the state's case is that Donna was involved in the planning, the encouraging, and financing this conspiracy. I know that Florida law treats conspiracy very seriously. Can you talk about how the state can prosecute someone for a murder that they didn't personally commit, and why conspiracy charges are so powerful in cases like this?
Right. Yeah. And, we hear the term RICO, and RICO is kind of, I would say, when the corner turned in American jurisprudence as far as use of the conspiracy for lots of things, white collar crime, drug crimes, murder crimes, those types of things. And what you have to think of when you think of a conspiracy is you think of a bicycle tire, okay? A wheel on a bicycle. Just take it off the bike and look at it. It's got a rim, it's got a hub, and it's got a bunch of spokes, right? You can take the rim off. And if you're left with just the hub and all the little spokes, that's what a conspiracy looks like. And the thing is that this spoke and this spoke don't have to even know all the other little spokes. As long as they are somehow connected to the main objective, and they know the main objective, and they join in on the main objective, and they do an act in furtherance of the objective, they're in the conspiracy. And so, again, they don't even necessarily have to know all the other players, because I venture that the first time Luis Rivera saw Donna Adelson was when he was on the stand the other day. He probably never met her before. He wouldn't know her from, as we say in the South, Adam's house cat. But they're in it together. Why? Because they knew of the goal of the conspiracy. They joined it, and they did an act in furtherance of it. So it's a very powerful tool for prosecutors. And Rudy Giuliani, whatever you may think of him nowadays, he really kind of set that in motion when he was prosecuting the mob way back in the day in the Southern District, or as they call it, the Sovereign District of New York, because it's so powerful. And they were using this, and they were getting all these mobsters for murders they didn't commit because they had done all the things necessary to be in a conspiracy.
How much does this family's dynamic, the tight nature of the Adelsons, complicate things for a jury because they're trying to separate individuals from collective suspicion?
Well, I don't know that. Well, that's a very good point you bring up, Kate. I think the state is trying to do the exact opposite. They're trying to lump them all together, guilt by association, and the defense is trying to pull them out. The closeness and the tight knit, by all accounts, this was a very, other than Rob, this is a very close family. Rob is the estranged brother that basically said, nobody was asking why or who or what happened. I mean, my ex-brother-in-law gets murdered, the father of my nephews, and nobody in the family cared. What the heck? I'm told by my mother not to talk to law enforcement. Of course, he already had at that point in time. And then when an arrest is made, he calls mom, and she's talking about everything else. Halfway through the conversation, he finally goes, "Mom, somebody got arrested for killing Danny." "Oh, yeah." Bizarre. But I digress. Back to your point, which is the family dynamic. By all accounts, very close, very tight-knit. Well, that plays directly into the thought or the feeling that they could get away with this. And there's rule number one of committing crime is don't commit crime with somebody else, because there's already somebody there that can knock you out.
Right.
But when you're that close and you trust each other that much to the point of agreeing to kill somebody, then yeah, the dynamic is there. So we in law, and especially in criminal law, we talk about plan, opportunity, motive, knowledge, lack of mistake. Well, that doesn't necessarily go to the motive. The motive is why they came together, but it's that tight knitness that gave them the opportunity and gave them the means to think they could pull this off. Does that make sense?
Definitely. And going back to Rob, what did you think of the power of his testimony?
I thought it was powerful from the standpoint of it was a very, very powerful juxtaposition of personalities from an Adelson. We're used to, other than Harvey, who's really, again, kind of an unknown. We see his picture every once in a while, and I believe he's in the courtroom, but you don't hear him on any phone calls or anything. He was on one video. But Rob is the example of a normal Adelson, if you will.
He's like the Marilyn Munster of the group.
Right. He's like the Marilyn Munster. Yeah, right. That's a very, very good point, a very good analogy. You got this weird group of people that act all kind of ways, and then you got the one normal one over here who they think is the weird one, right?
Right.
And he's estranged from the family. Maybe now one could probably wager a pretty accurate guess as to why. Maybe he knew things about them years ago that made him not want to be around them. Not necessarily that they're murderers, but maybe just the way they act and the way they think. But I thought that it was extremely powerful because he described, it's the first time we began to actually hear words out of Donna Adelson's mouth that we hadn't heard before in a different context. And I thought it was very powerful and resonated with the jury that this is her son. He is on the earth because of her. And he apparently takes telling the truth very seriously and certainly does not condone what has happened and is not going to cover up for them. And so again, like I said, I think it was a real good example that there is some normality in that family used to paint the rest of them as what they are.
I think there are a lot of people that are confused as to why Wendy has not been charged. Legally speaking, why do you think the state has held back on pursuing charges against her thus far?
Well, one may never know the full answer to that question unless they've sat in meetings in our state attorney's office and been fly on the wall to it. My guess is that somewhere early on, when they were not really getting anywhere and they were frustrated before they really broke the case, they felt like they needed to give her immunity to talk because she lawyered up, all of them did, really quick. They all agreed not to talk. I mean, really quick. Like, I think they were in town for Danny's funeral, Professor Markel's funeral, and were supposed to meet with law enforcement off of that, and they skedaddled. They all left town and left the law enforcement officers high and dry. So, when you start thinking about, if in fact they're the ones that did it, heavens forbid, but it's a possibility. You know what Sir Arthur Conan Doyle wrote about Sherlock Holmes? When you eliminate the possible, impossible, whatever remains, no matter how improbable, is the truth. Okay, we're law enforcement. Nah, there's no way these people kill this guy. I mean, it's a coincidence that this horrible divorce case was going on. But well, I guess there's only one way to find out. We got to get one of them to talk. So they laid immunity on her. And of course, she wiped her rear end with it and hasn't helped them at all. But, once it's granted and she's talked, unless they can find some independent evidence that links her beyond what she has told them, if in fact she were to, ultimately say something, it's going to be very, very difficult for them to prosecute her. So well played by her attorney, John Lauro, who is, I know John, he's a brilliant lawyer. He's out of Tampa, Florida, about 4.5 hours south of us. That's why she didn't get charged, because sometimes prosecutors have to make a deal with the devil. And we used, when I was a prosecutor, and we'd have to call a co-defendant to testify a defendant, and the defense would just make our co-defendant witness out to be the biggest dirtbag on the planet. We, in closing arguments, would have to tell the jury, I wish I had Billy Graham and Mother Teresa and Mahatma Gandhi and the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King as my witnesses, but I don't. I got Dirty Willie, So you got to take what you get. Sometimes you have to make that deal with the devil to break the case. And I think, to answer your question after a lot of talking, I think they cut a deal with the devil that just didn't pan out.
You know that person in your life who just can't stand mayo? Call them traumatized. Call them closed-minded. We get it. They're stuck in their ways. But here's the thing. They just haven't tried Hellmann's flavored mayo. We're talking bold flavors that will flip even the biggest skeptics. Spicy mayo that adds the perfect kick to your burger. Garlic aioli that transforms ordinary fries into something extraordinary. Chipotle mayo that turns your basic wrap into a smoky sensation. So to all the mayo haters out there, yes, we're looking at you. It's time to eat your words. Because with mayo this flavorful, any hater is just a mayo lover waiting to be convinced. Hellmann's flavored mayo. Get ready to eat your words.
Ready to prioritize yourself? Your skin is a great place to start. Dime Beauty, founded by a master esthetician, is more than just a skincare company. With 4 skin-conscious categories, skincare, beauty, body care, and fragrance, Dime offers simple, spa-worthy products that will help bring your glow back. Whether you're revitalizing your regimen with nourishing products or building one from scratch, Dime makes it easy. The Work System, our all-in-one best-selling routine, includes a cleanser of your choice, toner, serums, and moisturizers, taking the guesswork out of skincare for your healthiest, happiest skin yet. Dime's commitment to clean ingredients and sustainable packaging ensures every product is as gentle on your skin as it is on the planet. With thousands of glowing 5-star reviews and a loyal community, the results speak for themselves. Revive your skin and give yourself the routine refresh you deserve by visiting dimebeautyco.com. That's dimebeautyco.com. Your best skin awaits.
When you're watching, do you see her as someone who's sophisticated in media training and trial prep? Her answers, does she strike you as somebody who has a level of sophistication that further complicates the prosecution's case of convincing the jury?
On those points, no. And this view that I'm going to express is mine and mine alone. But I think that she is arrogant.
Oh, okay.
I think she is smart. I think that the combination of those makes her think that she is
smarter than everyone.
And talk her way out of this. I mean, like the other day, they asked her about dismissal of a case with prejudice. Well, most folks know that means you can't bring it back. Without prejudice means, okay, you can refile it if you have reason. And she professed not to know that.
Mm-hmm.
With the most what she thought was the most convincing tone, in the word games that she likes to play and what she doesn't want to remember. So there's a smugness about her.
Mm.
But she is smart. She's not an unintelligent person. So I don't think any of that when she's employing it together to try to meet the ends that she is at the moment seeking, I don't think any of that is impacted by her legal training, and certainly not anything that she may have learned in passing about courtroom advocacy, because I don't think she would even tell you, I don't think she's ever stepped foot in a courtroom as an advocate, maybe since she's been living in Miami, but she is not a trial lawyer.
Mm. Well, to your point, there was that moment when she's asked, or she makes comments about how she had concerns her own kids were going to be sent to foster care. And that the attorney asks her, well, are you speaking about the document that was sent? And she's twisting a narrative to make it seem like she had this real fear that her kids were going to be taken from her when it didn't seem to be even near the realm of possibility.
Right. But spin. Again, when you've got to create a plausible or what you think might be a plausible answer, you've got to come up with something to land. Then you come up with it and then you deliver it. And that may not be as much of her smug intelligence as much as it is just covering up. Thinking that she is again, my opinion, just observing her in these trials, I could be totally wrong, but my opinion, that she's pretty enough and accomplished enough, and she's the widow, and so people are going to believe her.
Yeah. Of course, for me, watching so many documentaries and interviewing so many people, I always think about the family dynamics, and it is perplexing to figure out who had control all of the time, or maybe it sort of shifted. Was Wendy in control of the whole family, or was Donna in control of the whole family? Because she's the only daughter and she's the youngest.
My guess would be that they're all self-centered enough and they've got enough money that they do their own things. And control is probably relinquished to some degree by others in particular situations. And I don't know if I'm making sense, but it's like they don't seem like the type of people that would be courteous enough to each other to let's think through how we're going to do something. Where would you like to have dinner tonight? Or,
right.
Let's start thinking about Thanksgiving together. They just don't strike me as that bunch. I think arguments, or at least theories, could be posited for, any of the three of them, Charlie, Donna, or Wendy, being the mastermind of this. To be honest, I think I would probably put Wendy at the bottom of that because she's the closest one to it. And so if anybody had a modicum of intelligence, which again, these are smart people, although they're not good criminals, they're smart people. And it would seem to me that, like, look, we're in Miami. We can pull a lot of these strings, whatever, 600 miles away from here. Maybe we should do some stuff and purposely leave her out of it. So she's got plausible deniability. So, they then wrested control of whatever's going to happen away from her. But, her actions that day are so suspect. And, the whole thing with thinking she's setting up Jeff Lacasse, her boyfriend at the time, to take the hit, and not knowing that Lacasse had changed his plan, left town early. Oops. If that wasn't red flag number one in the case for law enforcement, beyond the divorce, that probably was. But again, it's that arrogant smugness that I can tell this story and just people are going to believe it because I'm Wendy and I can tell it.
Do you think that she drove to the scene after the murder happened?
I do, yes.
Yeah. And then the last one is, some have speculated that her fear of being disbarred was the real spark behind the murder plot. Do you think the evidence supports that theory, or is this more of a sensationalized narrative?
Her fear of being, now this is a new one for me, her fear of being disbarred for what?
Because during the divorce proceedings, he caught her hiding finances, and that maybe he had threatened to bring this revelation forward, and that there may have been a possibility that she would be disbarred.
I can't, that it's so new to me, and I'd have to think more about it. And I've read a lot of the pleadings, and I know what people are talking about. That one, I don't think so, because if you think about her and you think about her life, I've always been struck with the thought that she kind of went to law school because she didn't have anything better to do.
Yeah.
So if she were to lose her bar license, oh, woe is me. I have nowhere to go other than to my parents that have millions of dollars and places, great places to live, and flashy cars and a dental practice in my hometown. Oh, heaven forbid, don't do that to me. So I can't imagine that would have been.
That's a good point. Yeah. Because she has a certain lifestyle expectation.
Yeah.
And wanted to raise the boys, but also wanted to do it on her own terms. And that would include being in an area of the country that was to her liking and not Tallahassee, Florida.
Right. And remember, Kate, that when she graduated law school, they came up here to work. She didn't take a job as an attorney.
Right.
She took a job as a clinical law professor. And I'm an adjunct professor at Stetson Law School. In St. Petersburg, Florida, and have been for years and years and years. So I'm, kind of familiar with that. That's a really bottom end sort of job as far as the legal field. It's not tenured. It's not an associate professor. It's not an assistant professor. It's basically like, hey, we've got a clinic where we place kids in internships out there, or we're running kind of a pro bono thing here, and the students can work on these projects as we, like little simple divorces, or maybe, a quit claim deed or something like that. You're basically just wrangling students. There's not a lot of professing going on in it. So, that's the job she got. If she's got the pedigree and the drive and the desire to be a great practicing lawyer, she would have any number of great opportunities in the Metro Tallahassee area to get an excellent job as a lawyer. But, she just took your husband's a professor here, you can do the clinical thing. So it doesn't sound to me like there was a whole lot of desire to be a lawyer anyway.
That's a great point. And he seemed to have quite a pedigree. And I just feel tremendous empathy for his family who are having to go through this.
Yes.
And for those children too.
Well, and here's the thing that keeps coming back to me every so often when this case comes up, we think about it. I don't know how old they are, but those boys are teenagers now.
Yep.
And it makes me wonder what they're able to uncover and research on their own. It makes me wonder what they've overheard in the years they've been around. A lot of
parental alienation, I'm sure.
For sure, but maybe what they've heard about this case.
Right.
Now where they're looking back, putting two and two together, going, wait a minute. And it makes me wonder at 18 years old what we might hear.
Yeah, because you hear your one parent's story, and then when she's standing or sitting in a courtroom across from a prosecutor, she's got to answer in a different way than you do in your kitchen.
Right. Well, and again, maybe mom and Donna are having a conversation, or maybe Donna and Charlie and mom are having a conversation, and they think the kids are asleep and they're right around the corner listening. That's kind of what I'm wondering may have happened. And it's very hard to just bust out when you're a kid. But again, when one of them goes off to college or when they turn 18 and they're emancipated, what they may decide to let the world know about. I don't know.
Right. When they're in their college dorm with a roommate who's like, by the way, my mom saw that episode of 2020 and what's going on with your family?
Right. Exactly. Or they're in a class and all of a sudden the professor brings it up, or, it's just, and the professor may bring it up without them knowing, but they have to endure it.
Yeah.
They have to hear about it and they have to see the podcasts. And they don't have to, but all that stuff's out there. And, I hope for them. It is my genuine hope, being a father, that they will get to know fully who their dad was and what he accomplished, and that he truly had nothing other than their best interests and his love for them at the forefront of everything he did. Because by all accounts, he did.
Yeah, indeed.
I hope that they know that and they carry that in their lives.
Yeah. Well, I am so grateful for your time. This has been so interesting and most helpful, especially to everyone who has followed this case for such a long time. Where can people follow you?
Well, I guess the best place to follow me, in addition to being a full-time attorney and a husband and dad and an adjunct law professor, I do have a legal publishing company. And we, since I'm a courtroom lawyer and a trial lawyer, I have a company that does advocacy tools for lawyers. I've written a couple of books that are published by West Academic. They are available on our website, but it's elexpublishers.com, ELEX, publishers plural.com. And if people want to follow me on the gram, it's Elex Publishers. And we're going to be posting a lot more coming up because we've got some really cool new stuff coming up. But anybody wants to talk trial advocacy, I'm all ears. I love it. It's a fascinating. It's an art and a science. And the cool thing about it is that I think sometimes people are as interested in much as what we do as trial lawyers as they are as interested as what professional football players do sometimes.
Sure.
Especially trials like this. So, but I'd love to hear from folks.
Thank you so much for your time.
You're welcome.
The amazing Kate Casey.
I want to thank my fantastic guest and remind you how important it is to make sure that you click subscribe. Please leave a 5-star review. Join the Facebook group, Reality Life with Kate Casey. You can get my what to watch list of what to watch each week in unscripted TV by going to katecasey.substack.com. And make sure that you check out bonus episodes on Apple Podcast and on Patreon at patreon.com/Kate Casey. And follow me on social media. I'm on Instagram at KKCCA, TikTok, it's Kate Casey, and Twitter, Threads, and Blue Sky at Kate Casey. Check back for an all-new episode tomorrow.
Hey there, are you sitting down? Good, because Wayfair's end-of-season sale is here, and you can shop it from your couch. It's Wayfair's Labor Day clearance, and it's on now. Right now, you can score up to 70% off everything home at Wayfair, like up to 50% off outdoor furniture and decor, and up to 70% off area rugs, plus amazing doorbuster deals, and 24-hour surprise flash deals on Wayfair home finds in every style. And get it all with fast shipping on everything right to your door. From furniture to faucets, this is your last chance of the season to score huge deals at Wayfair. Don't let the final days of summer pass you by without shopping these end-of-season savings. So don't wait. Like summer, these savings won't last. Head to wayfair.com today to score up to 70% off everything home. Celebrate your holiday weekend with can't-miss savings before they run out. Shop Wayfair's Labor Day clearance now through September 2nd at wayfair.com.
Wayfair, every style, every home.